antifungal compounds. Some of these antifungal compounds are also termed as antibiotics because they are produced by living organisms or bacteria, okay, and are effective against fungus. Okay, so just like we had seen the definition of antibiotics, that antibiotics are compounds which are produced by bacteria and are effective against other group of bacteria. Similarly, antifungal compounds, some of the antifungal compounds are also known as antibiotics or are termed as antibiotics because they are produced by bacteria and are effective against fungal pathogens. Okay, and there are other antifungal compounds which are synthetic. Okay, so in this lecture, I will be discussing about these fungal antibiotics as well as synthetic antifungal compounds which are used for controlling the fungal pathogens. Okay, so we will start with the presentation. Okay, so whenever we are trying to develop an antifungal compound for clinical use, we have to be very careful. Why? Because just like our cells, fungal cells are also eukaryotic. Okay, when we were discussing antibacterial compounds, we had seen that the bacteria are prokaryotic organisms, and we were always talking about specificity. Okay, specificity means whatever antibacterial compounds we develop, it should specifically target those molecules which are present only in bacteria and are not present in eukaryotes, so that the toxicity of the compounds can be reduced. Okay, but when we try to develop antifungal compounds, fungus are also eukaryotes. Okay, so it becomes very difficult for us to find targets within the fungal cells which are also eukaryotic, which are only present in fungal cells and are not present in the mammalian cells. ओके, तो जब भी हम लोग एंटी फंगल कंपाउंड डेवलप करना चाहते हैं तो हमें ध्यान रखना पड़ेगा कि वो जो एंटी फंगल कंपाउंड हो, जिस भी मॉलिक्यूल को या पाथवे को टारगेट करते हो, वो फंगस में स्पेसिफिक होने चाहिए, ठीक है, सो दैट कि जो हमारे सेल्स हैं, होस्ट के सेल्स हैं, उनको इफेक्ट ना हो, ठीक है। ऐसे टारगेट्स ढूंढना बहुत डिफिकल्ट रहेगा फंगस में। क्यों? क्योंकि फंगल सेल्स भी यूकैरियोटिक होते हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, आपने बैक्टीरिया में देखा था कि बैक्टीरिया का जो सेल वॉल होता है पेप्टिडोग्लाइकन का बना होता है, ठीक है। मैमेलियन सेल्स जो होते हैं उसमें पेप्टिडोग्लाइकन या हम कह सकते हैं कि सेल वॉल ही नहीं होता, ठीक है। तो कोई भी कंपाउंड जो पेप्टिडोग्लाइकन सिंथेसिस को टारगेट करे वो स्पेसिफिक हो जाएगा बैक्टीरिया के लिए, ठीक है, और हमारे सेल्स पे साइड इफेक्ट्स नहीं करेगा। सिमिलरली हमने देखा था कि बैक्टीरिया में प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस मशीनरी जो होती है इंटायरली डिफरेंट होती है एज कंपेयर टू दी होस्ट, मतलब हमारे सेल्स मैमेलियन सेल्स में जो प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस मशीनरी होती है, ठीक है। इसलिए यदि आप कोई ऐसे ड्रग्स ढूंढते हो जो बैक्टीरियल या प्रोकैरियोटिक राइबोसोम्स को इफेक्ट करेंगे, तो वो यूकैरियोटिक राइबोसोम्स को इफेक्ट नहीं करेंगे, तो जो आपका कंपाउंड होगा वो बहुत स्पेसिफिकली बैक्टीरियल ग्रोथ को ही इनहिबिट करेगा, ठीक है। मगर जब हम लोग एंटी फंगल कंपाउंड्स डेवलप करने की कोशिश करते हैं, क्योंकि फंगस जो होता है वो भी यूकैरियोटिक सेल है, तो उसकी जो मशीनरी होती है वो ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर होती है होस्ट की मशीनरी से, मैमेलियन सेल्स की मशीनरी से, ठीक है। तो इस तरह के टारगेट ढूंढना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है जो स्पेसिफिकली फंगल सेल्स में ही हो और जो होस्ट सेल्स हैं मैमेलियन सेल्स हैं उसमें ना हो, ठीक है। तो ये एक चैलेंज रहता है व्हेन एवर वी ट्राई टू डेवलप एंटी फंगल कंपाउंड्स, ठीक है। ऐसे टारगेट्स अवेलेबल हैं, हम लोग उनके बारे में देखेंगे भी और उनको यूज भी किया जाता है या टारगेट भी किया जाता है एंटी फंगल कंपाउंड्स के द्वारा, ठीक है। दूसरी जो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट होती है कि मेनी ऑफ द एंटी फंगल ड्रग्स क्वाइट टॉक्सिक फॉर ह्यूमंस एंड हैव वेरी लो थेरेपेटिक इंडेक्स, ठीक है। मोर ओवर, many fungi have detoxification systems that modifies many antifungal agents and thus limit their effectiveness. Okay, तो हम एंटीफंगल कंपाउंड्स ढूंढ भी लें तो बहुत सारे जो फंगस होते हैं, फंगल पैथोजेंस होते हैं, उनमें डिटॉक्सिफिकेशन मैकेनिज्म्स होते हैं और उसके कारण वो एंटीफंगल कंपाउंड्स को मॉडिफाई कर देते हैं और उनका जो इफेक्टिवनेस है उसको वो कम कर देते हैं। ठीक है, एक और लिमिटेशन जो होती है एंटीफंगल कंपाउंड्स की वो होती है मोस्ट एंटीफंगल्स आर फंजी स्टैटिक, दे विल नॉट किल बट दे विल इनहिबिट द ग्रोथ ऑफ फंगस। ठीक है, और उसके लिए भी आपको उसको बहुत लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए यूज करना पड़ेगा, तभी वो फंजी स्टैटिक प्रूव होते हैं। ठीक है, तो ये कुछ चैलेंजेस हैं जो एंटीफंगल कंपाउंड्स डेवलप करते समय हमें ध्यान रखना होता है। ठीक है, फिर भी कुछ टारगेट्स फंगल सेल्स में ऐसे होते हैं जिनको जो डिफरेंट है मैमेलियन होस्ट सेल से। ठीक है, और उनको हम लोग टारगेट करते हैं whenever we are trying to develop antifungal compounds. ये targets क्या हैं? For example, if you look at a fungal cell, it has a cell wall. Okay, our mammalian cells does not have a cell wall. Okay, and in the cell wall, we have a specific type of molecules which are present. Okay, and these molecules can be targeted by antifungal compounds. And if they are targeted, they will specifically inhibit the growth of the fungus. So let us look what all things are there in the cell wall which can be targeted. Okay, so this is the structure of the cell wall, and this is the cell membrane which is lying beneath the cell wall. Okay, the cell wall of the fungal cells, it composed of manoproteins. Okay, manos containing proteins. Okay, so this is one of the significant components, manoproteins. Then beneath that manoproteins, we have glucan, a layer of glucans. And these glucans are of two types. One is beta 1,6 linked glucan and the others are beta 1,3 linked glucans. Okay, so glucan layer is there. Beneath that glucan layer, we have chitin. Okay, the content of chitin, the amount of chitin, it varies from one type of fungus to other type. Okay, so in different genus of fungus, you will find that the chitin content will vary. Some of the fungus even do not have chitin. Okay, but chitin is very important fungal cell wall component, and it is the component that provides rigidity to the fungal cell wall. Okay, so the strength or rigidity of the fungal cell wall is because of chitin. Okay, so it is also one of the important targets. Okay, some fungus, as I told you, that do not even have chitin. They have other materials in the cell wall. For example, they can have cellulose, they can have chitosan, okay, which are different. So in those fungal cells, that specific component, cellulose, hemicellulose, or chitosan can also be targeted. Okay, but many of the fungus, they have chitin, and chitin, it is the component of the fungal cell wall that provides strength to the fungal cell wall. Okay, beneath this cell wall, we have the cell membrane. Okay, cell membrane of a fungal cell is similar to that of the mammalian cell membranes. Okay, the difference, it is also made up of phospholipid bilayer. Okay, but the difference is that the fungal cell membrane have sterols which are known as ergosterol. Okay, whereas the sterols which are present in mammalian cells are cholesterol. Okay, so this difference is very important and you have to keep it in mind that the cell membrane of the fungal cells have sterols in them. Okay, and these sterol is ergosterol. Okay, so the sterol which is present in the fungal cell membrane is ergosterol, whereas in our cells, mammalian cells, the sterol which is present in the cell membrane is cholesterol. Okay, so that is a significant difference. And if you can develop antifungal compounds which can target this ergosterol synthesis, it will specifically interfere with the membrane functioning in fungal cells and not in human cells. Okay, so this is also an important target. Okay, then we have, as I told you, that the fungal cell wall is composed of beta 1,3 and beta 1,6 glucans. Okay, there is an enzyme which is present in the cell membrane, which is known as glucan synthase. Okay, and this glucan synthase can also be targeted for controlling the growth of fungal pathogens. Okay, besides all these things, DNA and RNA synthesis in fungal cells can also be targeted. But as we had seen earlier in case of antibacterial antibiotics which target DNA and RNA, that these type of compounds are not very specific and they have lot of side effects because they cannot distinguish between the pathogen DNA or the host DNA. Okay, so these are rarely used, but still there are compounds which can target the fungal DNA and RNA synthesis. Okay, so these are the important targets which are used by antifungal compounds to inhibit the growth of fungus. Okay, we have targets in the cell wall, we have targets in the cell membrane. Okay, and finally we can also target the DNA and RNA synthesis. Okay, is it clear till now? If you have any doubt, you please ask. Okay, so if you don't have any doubts, then we will go ahead. Now we will look at how antifungal compounds can be classified. Okay, as I told you that we can classify antifungal compounds as antifungal antibiotics, which are produced by bacteria and are effective against fungal pathogens. Okay, we have two examples here. One is griseofulvin and the other is Pauline macrolides, okay, which have two examples, amphotericin B and nystatin. Okay, so antibiotics are compounds which are produced by microorganisms. Okay, we will look at what are the different microorganisms which produce these antibiotics. Okay, why we are calling it antifungal antibiotics? Because they are compounds which are produced by bacteria and are effective against fungal pathogens. Examples are griseofulvin and the other is Pauline macrolides, which include amphotericin B and nystatin. Next, we have the other group, which is synthetic antifungal compounds. Okay, and majority of the antifungal compounds which are used clinically, they are all synthetic antifungal compounds. And in this synthetic antifungal compounds, we have number of groups. We have azoles, we have allylamines, we have echinocandins, we have flucytosins, and we have compounds which target chitin synthase enzyme. Okay, so we will look in details about all these groups later in the lecture. Now we will look at another mechanism of classifying the antifungal compounds. Okay, this was based on how they are synthesized, whether they are natural products or whether they are synthetic. Another classification that we can make is based on how they act, or when we administer them, how they will be used. For example, we have antifungal compounds which can have systemic action and which can be used systemically. Systemically means throughout the body. They will be injected and they will act throughout the body. For example, we have amphotericin B, we have 5-flucytosine, we have fluconazole. They can be administered intravenously and they can act throughout the entire body. Okay, then we have antifungal compounds which can be used topically. Topically means they have to be used on the surfaces and they act locally. Okay, in the nearby area they will act. So we can have antifungal creams which can be applied at specific places in the body and they can have action there itself in the nearby places. Okay, so whether the antifungal compound is used systemically or they are used topically, we can classify the antifungal compounds. For systemic application, I already told you that amphotericin B, flucytosine, they can be used systemically, while if you want to use topical application in form of creams, you can use ketoconazole, you can use clotrimazole, okay, you can use terconazole. We will look at what these compounds are later on, Okay, but just we can know here that some compounds can be used systemically or others can be used topically. Okay. The third system of classification is based on mode of action. Okay, in the earlier lecture when we were studying antibacterial compound, there also we had studied the different groups of antibacterial compounds based on their mode of action. Similarly, here also we will study different type of antifungal compounds, and we will study how they act, where they act. Okay, so we had already discussed the different type of targets which are there. Okay, and then we will look which different group of compounds act on these targets. Okay, so based on mode of action also, we can classify the antifungal compounds into different groups. Okay, so we will start with the first group of antifungal compounds, which is actually antifungal antibiotic, and this is the Pauline group of antibiotics. Okay, so the first Pauline group of antibiotic was nystatin, which was identified in 1949. Okay, in 1956, the second Pauline antibiotic amphotericin B was reported. In 1960, amphotericin B was approved for clinical use. Okay, and nowadays from 1990 to 92, lipid formulation of amphotericin B has been introduced and is being used. Okay, so Pauline group of antifungal compounds are also known as antifungal antibiotics. Okay, as the name suggests, polyene. Poly means many, ene means double bonds. Okay, so a polyene group of antibiotic will have multiple conjugated double bonds. Okay, and the second thing is that these molecules also are heavily hydroxylated opposite to the double bonds. Okay, so you can look at the structure of amphotericin B. You can see here they have conjugated double bonds. There are so many double bonds which are there. Okay, and then opposite to these double bonds, you can see there is lot of OH group. Okay, so that is what I was saying, that they have multiple double bonds, and opposite to these double bonds, there is lot of hydroxylation which has occurred. Okay, so double bond will give this molecule a hydrophobic character, while hydroxyl group which is present will give it a hydrophilic character. Okay, so that is why these type of molecules have amphoteric in nature, or they are amphoteric in nature. Amphoteric in nature means they have hydrophilic as well as hydrophobic characters. Okay, so that is the important thing. The Pauline antibiotics, they bind to sterols which are present in the fungal cell membrane. Okay, so which type of sterol is present in fungal cell membrane? Hello. Which type of sterols are present in fungal cell membrane?
Ergosterol.
Okay, so these right, this Pauline antibiotics, they will bind to the ergosterol which is present in the fungal cell membrane. And what they do is that they get inserted into the fungal cell membrane. Okay, so you can see here many molecules of amphotericin B have got inserted into the cell membrane. This is the phospholipid bilayer. Okay, so these round structures are phosphate groups. These tail-like structures are the lipid molecules. So this is the structure of the fungal cell membrane. Okay, so this is the phospholipid bilayer, and in between you can see these black things. They are the amphotericin B molecules. They get inserted themselves into the fungal cell membrane, and because they have both hydrophilic and hydrophobic characters, they can form a channel across the cell membrane, and through this channel the solutes will leak out and the cell will die. Okay, so this is the mechanism how amphotericin B acts. Okay, so these are amphotericin B molecules. They get inserted into the fungal cell membrane and they will form channels, and through these channels the ions which are present inside the cell they will get leaked out, and when electrolyte imbalance occurs the cell will die. Okay, so this is how amphotericin B acts. Okay, as I told you that amphotericin B can be administered systemically using intravenous application. Okay, uh, so it's a systemic antifungal compound. Okay, these are different formulations of amphotericin B which are available. Okay, you don't have to remember the formulation. The only important thing that you have to remember is the what is the structure of these type of amphotericin B molecules, what is their mode of action, and whether they can be used systemically or they are used topically. Okay, so B was a Pauline antifungal compound which is used systemically. We have another example of Pauline antibiotic, which is nystatin. Okay, nystatin is used topically. Okay, it is not systemically used. It is used topically in form of creams or ointments. Okay, topically means it will be used on the surface and it will have localized effect. Okay, it is toxic for systemic use. Okay, why it is not used systemically? Because it is toxic. Okay, so that is why it is used only topically. Okay, it is not very uh, not very get it does not get absorbed very in a very good way, and then it has unpleasant taste, and that is why it is used for topical application. If you look at the structure of nystatin, it is also similar to that of amphotericin B. Okay, so it has the same mode of action because they belong to the same group. Okay, both are Pauline antibiotic. Systemic application we have amphotericin B. For topical application we have nystatin. Okay, both act by similar mode of action. So nystatin molecules, they also get incorporated into the cell membrane of the fungus, and they will also cause electrolyte imbalance and leakage of ions across the membrane. Okay, in our laboratory, if you want to prepare a medium where you do not want fungal growth, we include this nystatin into the medium. ओके, तो आपको यदि कोई प्लेट बनानी हो और आपको फंगल कंटामिनेशन बहुत ज़्यादा आ रहा हो, तो आप ये निस्टैटिन जो होता है इसको आप अपने प्लेट्स में, मीडिया की प्लेट्स में इंक्लूड कर सकते हो, तो उसमें वो फंगल ग्रोथ को इनहिबिट कर देगा. ठीक है, ये क्लिनिकली भी यूज किया जाता है निस्टैटिन इन क्रीम्स. ठीक है, सो दिस वाज अबाउट पॉलिन antibiotic. Then we have another antibiotic which is Griseofulvin. It is produced by Penicillium griseofulvum. Okay, because it is produced by a fungus, it is also known as antifungal antibiotic. Okay, it was isolated from Penicillium griseofulvum in 1939. Okay, it is very insoluble. Okay, it is very insoluble and is fungistatic. Okay, it is insoluble in water, but it is soluble in lipids. Okay, that is why this griseofulvin, when it is given with fatty foods. Okay, so that it gets absorbed in the fatty foods. When we use this griseofulvin for clinical application, it gets deposited in newly formed skin where it binds to keratin. Keratin is a protein which is present in the skin. Okay, so when it is used, it gets deposited in the newly formed skin where it binds to keratin and it protects the skin from fungal infections. Okay, what is the mode of action of griseofulvin? Griseofulvin, it interferes with spindle fiber formation, and thus it does not allow the cell to undergo mitosis. Okay, so it will inhibit the mitosis in fungal cell. Okay, and how does it inhibit the mitosis? By interfering with the spindle fiber formation. Okay, so this is very important group of antifungal antibiotic, and its mode of action is being asked in many of the examinations. What is the mode of action of griseofulvin? So you have to remember it inhibits the spindle fiber formation, and therefore it will inhibit the mitosis process. Okay, and when mitosis is not there, because that is the process by which the fungal cell divides. Okay, so the fungal cell will not divide. Okay, so these two antibiotics, that is Pauline group of antibiotics, which included amphotericin B and nystatin, and the second griseofulvin, they are known as antifungal antibiotics because they are produced by bacteria or fungus, okay, and are effective against other group of fungal pathogens. Okay, now we'll move to antifungal compounds which are synthetic. Okay, so these were natural. Now we will move to compounds which are synthetic. And the first antifungal compound which was synthesized for controlling for fungal growth was azole group of antifungal compounds. Okay, azole group of antifungal compounds. The first antifungal azole was reported in 1944. Okay, and the first azole antifungal compound which was marketed was ketoconazole. Okay, in 1958, it was marketed for the first time. First azole to be marketed was ketoconazole in 1958. Okay, now we have other types of azoles like fluconazole, itraconazole, which was introduced in 1990s. Okay, in 1993 to 1995, second generation azoles were synthesized, and these second generation azoles are known as triazoles. Okay, and recently, if you look, then posaconazole, which is one of the most broad spectrum antifungal azole, is being used. Okay, so these are different types of azoles. This is a brief history of the azole group of compounds. Okay, let us now look how the azole group of compounds work. Okay, in azoles, actually we divide the azoles into two groups. We have imidazoles and we have triazoles. Okay, when we talk about the first generation azoles, we are talking about imidazoles. When we talk about second generation azoles, these are triazoles. Okay, so imidazoles are the first generation azoles. Examples are ketoconazole, as I told you that it was the first azole. Okay, ketoconazole. Then we have miconazole, we have clotrimazole. Okay, triazoles, we have itraconazole, fluconazole, voriconazole, and posaconazoles. Okay, so these are two groups which come under azoles, both because both are azole compounds. Okay, so their mode of action will be same. Okay, how does azole compound act? Okay, azole compounds, they inhibit the enzyme lanosterol 14 alpha demethylase. Okay, so this is the enzyme that is inhibited by azoles. Lanosterol 14 alpha demethylase. It is also known as cytochrome P450. Okay, which is enzyme which is necessary for converting lanosterol to ergosterol. Okay, so we can see that these azoles, they inhibit a step in the ergosterol synthesis, and ergosterols are sterols which are present in the cell membrane of the fungal cells. Okay, so if ergosterols will not be synthesized, the fungal cell membranes will not be appropriate, and their functional will be affected, and the cell will die. Okay, so the azole compounds, they target an enzyme which is lanosterol 14 alpha demethylase, also known as cytochrome 450. Okay, which will inhibit the conversion of lanosterol to ergosterol, and thus the ergosterol synthesis will be affected, and the cell membrane will not be proper and the cell will not function or it will die. Okay, this cytochrome P450, it is present in the mitochondria of the fungal cells, and disrupting its functions also results in accumulation of lot of peroxides inside the cell, and which results in autodigestion of the fungus. Okay, so these are the two mechanisms by which the azole compound works. They are also known as demethylase inhibitors. Okay, in short, they are also known as demethylase inhibitor. Which demethylase? Lanosterol 14 alpha demethylase. Okay, so this is the main mode of action. Imidazoles may also alter DNA or RNA metabolism in the fungal cells. Okay, so this is the pathway to show the synthesis of ergosterol. You can see here the precursor molecule is a squalene. This squalene is converted into squalene 2,3 epoxide. This squalene 2,3 epoxide later gets converted into lanosterol, and later this lanosterol will get converted into ergosterol by different pathways. Okay, and azoles, they inhibit these different pathways that result in conversion of lanosterol to ergosterol. Okay, and when ergosterols are not synthesized, the fungal cell membrane will not be functional. Okay, so this was about azoles. In the azoles, we have certain examples. For example, the first imidazole or azole compound to be used or commercialized was ketoconazole. Okay, and it was the first azole to be used in clinical studies and for clinical use. Okay, it is less selective for fungal P40 than newer azoles. Okay, that is why we say that we have second generation azoles also, because this first generation azole, which is ketoconazole, was less selective for fungal P4, P450. Okay, but the newer generation of azoles, they are more effective and they are very specific for fungal P450. Okay, we have itraconazole, which is a triazole. Okay, and this itraconazole have very broad spectrum antifungal activity. Okay, and it is more selective than ketoconazole. Then we have fluconazole, which is also a triazole, and it is orally adequate and it can be absorbed 94% time. Okay, then the latest or newest triazole is the posaconazole, and as I told you that they are the broadest spectrum member of azole family. Okay, and it is the only azole with significant activity against agents of zygomycosis and mucormycosis. Okay, this zygomycosis and mucormycosis are very much resistant to other antifungal compounds. Okay, so posaconazole is very effective against zygomycosis and mucormycosis. Okay, then we have topical azoles also. Clotrimazole and miconazoles are used topically, okay, for controlling infections on skin and body surfaces. Okay, so this was all about azoles. We have next group of compounds which are known as allyl amines. Okay, allyl amines, they are squalene epoxidase inhibitors. Okay, where does allylamine act? They inhibit an enzyme which is squalene epoxidase. Okay, so this squalene epoxidase we had seen, it also comes in the ergosterol synthesis. So the first precursor was squalene, and this squalene was converted into squalene 2,3 epoxide, which was later converted to lanosterol, which was finally converted into ergosterol. Okay, so allyl amines are compounds which inhibit this process of uh, again the ergosterol synthesis, but they act at a different point. They inhibit the squalene epoxidase, and when squalene epoxidase will not function, then the conversion of squalene to squalene 2,3 epoxide will not occur. Okay, so it also inhibits the ergosterol synthesis, but it acts at a step earlier than azoles. Okay, azoles were acting at this point when lanosterol has to be converted into ergosterol. Okay, but squalene epoxidase inhibitors, they act earlier. Okay, so when squalene has to be converted into squalene 2,3 epoxide, this step is inhibited by the allyl amines. Okay, so ultimately they will also inhibit the ergosterol synthesis, and they will also interfere with the functioning of or proper synthesis of the cell membrane of the fungal cell. Examples of allyl amines are terbinafine, naftifine, butanafine. Okay, so the most widely used allyl amine is terbinafine. Okay, it is a synthetic allylamine. It is active orally. Okay, so it can be administered systemically also. Okay, and terbinafine is also present in antifungal creams, and they can also be used for topical application. Okay, so we had seen till now three different types of antifungal compounds. The first were antifungal antibiotics, which included Pauline antibiotics and griseofulvin. Next, we look at azoles, and we found that they are demethylase inhibitors. Then we looked at allylamines. They are squalene epoxide inhibitors. Okay, now we move to another group of antifungal compounds, which are known as echinocandins. Okay, echinocandins, they were first reported in 1988, so we can say that they are relatively new. Okay, and the example of echinocandins which have been approved for clinical use is caspofungin. Okay, it was approved in 2001 and is being used clinically. Okay, echinocandins, they are newest class of antifungal compounds. They are lipopeptides. Okay, they are lipopeptides. They are active against Candida and Aspergillus, but they are not very effective against Cryptococcus neoformans or the agents of zygomycosis or mucormycosis. Okay, they are effective against Candida and Aspergillus, but they are not very effective against Cryptococcus neoformans or agents of zygomycosis or mucormycosis, which are, as I told you earlier also, that they are very much resistant to many of the antifungal compounds which are available in market. Okay, what is the mode of action of echinocandins? Echinocandins, they inhibit 1,3-D-glucan synthase. Okay, so in the fungal cell wall, we had seen that there were glucan, beta 1,3 and beta 1,6 glucans. Okay, so these echinocandins, they inhibit this beta 1,3 glucan synthesis. Okay, so when glucan synthesis will not occur, then the fungal cell wall will not be proper. Okay, so it will be weak and it can be easily lysed. Okay, so this is how echinocandins work. They target this beta 1,3 glucan synthase, which synthesizes beta 1,3 glucans, and when it will not get synthesized, the fungal cell wall will be weak, and the cell wall and the fungus will die. Okay, so this is about echinocandins. Now we will move to another group of antifungal compound, which is flucytosine. Okay, flucytosine. Flucytosine is a compound which is taken up by the fungal cells via enzyme, which is cytosine permease. Okay, so this is flucytosine, which is outside. It will be taken inside the fungal cells by a transporter which is present in the cell membrane of the fungal cells, which is cytosine permease. Okay, so it is taken inside. Inside the cell, flucytosine is converted into 5-fluorouracil. by an enzyme cytosine deaminase. Okay, so inside the cell, this 5 flu cytosine, it will be converted into 5 fluorouracil. Okay, and later on, this 5 fluorouracil will be converted to 5 fluorouridine triphosphate. Okay, so FUTP, which is 5 fluorouridine triphosphate, and this 5 fluorouridine triphosphate will get incorporated into the RNA. Okay, so we know that in RNA, instead of thymine, we have U. Okay, and this U gets uridine gets incorporated directly into the RNA. Okay, so if in the cell, fungal cell, if fluorouridine triphosphate is present, instead of uridine getting incorporated into the RNA, this fluorouridine will get incorporated. And when this fluorouridine will get incorporated, it will interfere with the reading of the fungal RNA by the ribosomes. Okay, so this is how it acts. It once it gets incorporated into the fluorouridine, it gets incorporated into the RNA. The RNA will not be read properly by the ribosome machinery, and the protein synthesis will get inhibited. If the RNA has some direct function in the cell, those function will also get affected if fluorouridine has got incorporated into the RNA. Okay, this 5-fluorouridine monophosphate, this fluorouridine triphosphate, it gets converted inside the cell into 5-fluorouridine monophosphate, and it can also competitively, or sorry, non-competitively inhibit thymidine, thymidylate synthase. Thymidylate synthesis will be affected, and when thymidine is not synthesized, the DNA synthesis will also get affected. Okay, so this flu cytosine, once taken inside the cell, it gets converted into fluoro-UTP and gets incorporated into the RNA. This fluoro-UTP can get converted into fluoro monophosphate, okay, fluorouridine monophosphate, and this fluorouridine monophosphate, it can inhibit with thymidine synthesis, and when thymidine synthesis does not occur, the DNA synthesis will also get affected. Okay, so this is the mode of flow cytosine. Okay, it is being used for controlling many fungal pathogens. Okay, for example, it is used against Candida, it is used against Cryptococcus neoformans, it is used against Aspergillus. Okay, so this is being frequently used for controlling fungal infections, and it is very effective against many fungal pathogens which are resistant to other antifungal compounds. Okay, then we have another antifungal compound, which is atovaquone. It is used for treatment of immunocompromised patients suffering from life-threatening fungal infections caused by pneumocystis. Okay, it is also used as an anti-malarial drug and inhibits the malarial cytochrome BC1. Okay, it is an analog of ubiquinone. Okay, ubiquinone is an integral component of the eukaryotic electron transport chain. Okay, and thus it disrupts the electron transport chain, resulting in inhibition of nucleic acid synthesis and ATP production. Okay, so this atovaquone, it acts by inhibiting mainly the energy metabolism inside the fungal cell. Okay, because it's a analog of ubiquinone and it disrupts the electron transport chain. Okay, finally, the last compound which targets the chitin synthesis. Okay, although it is not being clinically used, okay, but there are certain compounds which are available, okay, for research purpose, which inhibits the chitin synthesis in fungal cells. And the example is nicomycin. Okay, nicomycin, it will inhibit the chitin synthesis, and there are certain enzymes which are produced by many bacteria and fungi, which are known as chitinases, which inhibits the which degrades the chitin. And as I told you that chitin is an important fungal cell wall component, and it provides strength to the fungal cells. Okay, so they are used, but they are not clinically used. ओके सो क्लिनिक्स में ट्रीटमेंट के लिए फंगल डिजीजेस यदि हो गई हैं तो उनकी ट्रीटमेंट में यूज नहीं होता क्योंकि उनके बहुत सारे साइड इफेक्ट्स होते हैं, बट दे आर अवेलेबल एंड इन रिसर्च पर्पसेस दे कैन बी यूज्ड. Kinases are frequently used in formulations which are used for controlling fungal phytopathogens. ठीक है, प्लांट में यदि फंगल इन्फेक्शंस हो गए हैं तो उनको ट्रीट करने के लिए या उनको कंट्रोल करने के लिए जो फॉर्मुलेशंस अवेलेबल हैं उसमें काइटनेजेस यूज होते हैं और बहुत सारे काइटिन सिंथेसिस इनहिबिटर्स यूज किए जाते हैं, मगर ह्यूमंस में फंगल इन्फेक्शंस को कंट्रोल करने के लिए अभी काइटिन इनहिबिटर्स जो है यूज नहीं किए जा रहे. Okay, so this was all about the antifungal compounds that you have to remember. Okay, so there were so many antifungal compounds and there were many new names. Okay, so you will have to practice them. You will have to remember them. Okay, then only they will be on your fingertips. Okay, so the only thing that is expected from you is to frequently go through these name of different antifungal compounds so that you can easily remember them. ठीक है, तो आपको इनके नाम जो है वो बार बार याद करने पड़ेंगे. ठीक है, तभी वो याद रहेंगे. ठीक है, तो ये जो पीपीटी है मैं पोस्ट कर दूंगा ग्रुप में, तो आप लोग इसको रेफर कर सकते हो. और जो आपकी रेफरेंस बुक है प्रेस्कॉट, दैट आल्सो यू कैन रेफर